Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be men and talk about masculinity and men's issues. I'm your host, Brian Crawl, and today I want to talk about the question, why have children? Seriously, why? Why should we reproduce? I mean, most of us want to, yes, most of us want to have kids, and I myself always wanted that as well, but why? It is, of course, instinctual. So, because we are programmed by Mother Nature with this sexual instinct we call libido, and that innate desire to have sex so that we can fulfill our biological imperative to reproduce, and further the species, thus passing on our genes. Sexuality and reproduction are just part of nature and the cycle of life, right? So does that mean that you really want to have kids? Or are you just following a subconscious program installed in your mind by some sort of scientific or spiritual force of nature? Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why it really is that you want to have kids? And if it really is something you desire when you consciously and intellectually think about it? Because why do you want kids, really? Is it because the thought of having a family, having more people to love, people who come from you, gives you all sorts of warm, tingly feelings inside? Well, that certainly makes it a great fantasy, but is that a good reason for wanting something so big? Something that is going to have huge costs, really fuck up your life, and cause you to fuck up the lives of people you love? Because every parent fucks up their kids. Every kid fucks up their parents' lives. Families are full of drama. I mean, and parenting is one of the hardest struggles a man will ever face. It is the most challenging thing possible. And you're always going to be doing things wrong and screwing it up and screwing up your kids. And by the time they get to be teenagers, they won't even be the same person anymore. And chances are they'll be rebelling against you and you won't even get along anymore. And you're talking about a lifelong commitment, so you have to ask yourself if you should really be committing to that. Now, it's not just about the time investment, it's also about the emotions involved. For the reasons you want this are emotional reasons, right? They come from subconscious desires and motivations from your sexual and animal instincts. And the reason you want a family is because you want more love. Right? So you have to ask yourself, why is it you want that, emotionally speaking? I mean, do you need more oxytocin in your brain? Why is it you want more love? And is that the best solution for fulfilling that emotional need of yours that is not being fulfilled? To force new life into the world so that you will have more people to love you? That doesn't sound so good. And it's interesting just how things sound when we talk about our feelings out loud like that. And that is something I'm coming to realize with this channel, is that there's certain things, especially psychological things, that, when you think about them and write about them silently, it is very different than talking about them out loud. Especially when you're talking about aspects of yourself, right? And things that are uncomfortable to think and talk about. Talking about things out loud will really show you the true nature of things and how you really feel about them. So when something doesn't sound good when you say it out loud, but it sounded okay in your mind, it's because you were dressing it up emotionally in your mind to make it seem like a better thing than it actually is, right? And feelings that either don't have a good reason behind them or don't sound healthy need to be dealt with therapeutically, not enabled. And the dark truth is that most people have kids simply because they're following a hardwired program in their brains that they've never thought about consciously. And if you were to ask them, they'd say they want to make a family to love. But as you should know from my video on the case against love, linked below, we only seek to love in order to bring something into our life that is absent and lacking that we want to be there. If we have a lack of love and a need for it, creating new life to love you is a very narcissistic thing to do. It's like playing God. And your relationship with your child is not always going to be loving. Sometimes they're going to scream, "I hate you" at you. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have kids. I'm saying you should only have them for the right reasons. And that it is such a big decision that you really should be making sure of that. You should make sure you are ready for that and are not doing it just basically so you don't ever have to be lonely and will always have people surrounding you who will love you, as many narcissistic mothers do, like my mother. And that really fucks kids up and is the opposite of healthy love. And that's another reason why it is just so important for us to question our emotions and instincts and the things that we desire. And the greater your desires, meaning the larger they are, the larger of an investment it would require to go after them, the more you should question them and make sure they are the right things for you to go after before you go investing your life in them. Especially when it is going to be affecting other people too. And even more especially when that person is a child who you are, bringing into the world. And you also shouldn't be having a child to fulfill your own emotional needs. Parenting is about nurturing the child's emotional needs, not the child doing that for you. So if you do have kids, make sure you do it for the right reasons and in the right ways. So you don't fuck them up like my parents did with me and like I did with my poor son. Though mine was an accident, I never planned on having him. I basically had him because I was a slave to my reproductive instincts, like a sex addict. I couldn't help myself. I just needed to fertilize the wombs of fertile bitches. I did want kids my whole life, again, because I'm part of this circle of life with this biological imperative to reproduce, and thus this paternal instinct to father offspring. So I was glad when he came, although I wasn't really ready. And looking back, I just wished that I had asked myself at some point in my life why it was I thought I wanted kids, and if that was the right reason. And I just wish I had thought it through and planned and done it all differently, so I could have given my son a better childhood like he deserved, because he's just an innocent, sweet young boy, and I wasn't ready for him and couldn't always provide the type of stability, and the type of healthy lifestyle and development that a child needs. And honestly, I think it would have been better if his mother had just had him with another man without me, since, basically now he has a stepfather who is the one primarily doing the parenting anyways. He got taken away from me anyways. And deciding ultimately to not have kids at all is the kind of mature decision you need to be able to make if you are thinking about having kids. All right, it should be a choice and not something that you are doing just because you have this reproductive instinct and so you absolutely must reproduce and you're not even in control of your own sexual decision making. You need to be able to make a conscious, mature adult decision either to or not to have kids, right? And oftentimes choosing not to is just one of the most mature, conscientious decisions you will ever make in your life. So if you do want kids, just think about why that is and see if you can come up with a good enough reason to really justify the creation of a new human life, an innocent life that is being brought into a very problematic and nightmarish, hellish world that I myself wish I hadn't been brought into, and your children may grow to resent you bringing them into it as well. And these are all things we need to consider when trying to make a mature, conscientious decision about such an important thing as creating new life. So I hope that helps, and that concludes this talk. Thank you for listening, and be sure to share your own thoughts and opinions on whether or not we should be reproducing by commenting below. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and share these messages with everyone by sharing the video on social media and talking about these things too. And lastly, check out the links in the description below for other resources for your masculine and personal development and living the life you want to as an independent man, including sex ed and relationship classes. And if you can afford to donate, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support funds me doing this work and fighting the good fight for men like you. And you can stay tuned for the next video coming out soon, which will be on the very dark and esoteric topic of sexual vampirism and succubuses. Succubi? Yeah, succubi, I think it is. And make sure you subscribe so you get notified when that is. Until then, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.